Jeff Andrew of Time Out says that this film is beautifully shot and designed, but in a cloyingly self-conscious manner, the film lacks narrative drive. TV Guide calls it sumptuous, grandly scaled, and often ludicrous. And Tom Shales of The Washington Post says this movie may turn out to be legendary, but not in the way the filmmakers intended. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we determine the fate of Legend.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be?
The Ruined Childhoods Podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters, and welcome to our third installment of Ruined Childhoods Tom Cruise Month edition. We're
Happy
cruising
Tom
through
Cruise
October.
Month, Dan.
What? Happy Tom Cruise Month.
How has your Tom Cruise month been? What have you been doing with the family to celebrate?
We had cake tonight, actually.
You had cake. Well, was that for Tom Cruise month, or for your birthday celebration?
50-50. It was, yes, so it is, I guess, if you're listening to
The day this comes out.
on release day, yes, I hit 42, so, yeah, we had some cake. We had a delicious raclette dinner. And
Okay.
For those who don't know what raclette is, imagine almost like a combination of fondue and hibachi.
Okay.
So just imagine you've just got this a grill on the table, and then there's these little plates that you can stick under the grill, and you can melt cheese on things or not, or whatever you want to do. You can make it you can make whatever you want on it. It's a great meal because it can suit a wide variety of dietary restrictions. So
Got it.
yeah. So and then we had some cake, and
here we are.
yeah.
And now you're talking about Legend.
And we're talking about Legend. That's right, 1985.
But first, there's a few things we need to talk about.
Oh, are there?
There's one thing that is not so much related to the theme of the podcast, but its hosts, and that's us, by the way. And
Hi, I'm Dan.
we did not mention this the past few episodes, but there was something that came up a few weeks ago when we were together.
I know.
Ladies and germs, Dan and I have a nickname that was given to us by our 100-year-old grandmother. We are the boys from nowhere.
The boys from nowhere.
Yeah.
Shout out to
I can't
Gigi.
I can't believe it's taken us this long to bring this up, but she was making an announcement to everybody, and she was saying that everybody else there was traveled not very far to get there, maybe as far as
Long Island,
from Pennsylvania to New Jersey, Long Island maybe, and we were coming from the Pacific Northwest. But our 100-year-old grandmother has never heard of Seattle or Portland before. So when she was saying the boys came here all the way from, couldn't think of the names of the cities we're from or even the region, she said nowhere. So that's where we're from.
But she was pretty quick with that. And in her defense, she has been to Seattle, though not in quite some time. So
99 years.
I don't know. I mean, was she out in? No, I don't think she's been to Portland. I don't know.
Nope.
We'll have to.
Not as far as I know.
We'll have to check in on that. Yeah.
Yeah. She also asked our brother Scott if he was real to his face, because for anybody who heard the episode with Scott, what episode did we do with him?
The Last Starfighter.
The Last Starfighter, which he doesn't seem to remember ever watching, even though he watched it 5,000 times.
Yes.
She questioned his reality and his own existence.
She's not the first, though. She's not the first. And by the way, John, I don't know if you saw this the other day, but speaking of Scott, so I'm scrolling through on my Instagram feed, and this is from a feed that I use pretty much for school. So I follow the New York Times. I don't follow Scott on that one. I follow Scott on my personal Instagram. And we also follow him at Rune Childhoods Pod on Instagram. But then I'm scrolling through my teacher Instagram and I see on New York Times, that's the lead photo is, and I'll have to post this on our feed, but
we'll regram it.
We'll regram it. It's Scott staring down a slice of pizza, which is, nothing unusual, but it was very much out of context and unexpected. So I suppose I questioned his reality at a certain moment. I was like, wait a second, what's happening? The timelines are crossing.
So also we got an email from our buddy French Fry Phil.
Yes, I was responding to it earlier.
Oh, yeah. So he wanted to write to us about the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. Now, Dan, remind me exactly how that came up a few episodes back.
It came up in the context of Rain Man because, if I may, Mark Haddon's amazing novel, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, which has also since been adapted into a play, which I've heard is quite good. It is told from the perspective of I want to say he's maybe a 12-year-old boy with autism. It's been several years since I've read it, but the book is narrated from his perspective. And I don't know. I don't know who really knows, what life is like from the perspective of someone with autism other than someone with autism. But I felt like this book, just based on everything that I had learned about autism and the behaviors and the spectrum, the book it made sense. And I felt like just considering and thinking of the kids who I have known who've had autism, it matched. There were so many overlaps or similarities, but I was now seeing them from the perspective of that person rather than my own. And I remember really being engaged by this style of writing, and I really felt like, man, this guy, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I feel like this guy really did his homework. And so Phil was bringing that up in the context of Rain Man, and maybe not as a remake of Rain Man, but a more contemporary story about autism, about a child with autism. And he's dealing with a lot of complex issues. I don't really want to say much because I think people should read it. And I really don't want to say much more about the plot.
Right. Well, French Fry Phil wanted to just say he read it when it came out and really enjoyed it, and says, I remember Brad Pitt obtaining / optioning some film rights around that time. It's been a while, but it could happen one day. So we'll just wait patiently. So, as you're talking about that, it made me think of the movie, which I believe was adapted from a book, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, which... I didn't think it was
Jonathan Safran Foer wrote the novel.
That's right. So I definitely watched it with a lot of appreciation for how the character, depicted having experiencing autism. So
right. The I believe Tom Hanks plays the father.
Yes,
and the son has Asperger's, I think. Is that
I
correct?
believe it's Asperger's. Yeah.
So neither here nor there, really. But and then also, Parenthood, the series, the television series, with the character of Max, who early on in season 1 is diagnosed with, or I don't know, diagnosed with, but is identified as having Asperger's. And I really felt like that storyline and the arc of that storyline through that series was one of the strongest. And, I mean, even if like that's not your thing, because it's like that's not my thing. I don't watch This Is Us or anything, but Parenthood, the series, which I know we'll discuss in further depth in the future when we discuss the movie,
Right.
worth checking out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. Was Legend worth checking out? I don't know. Do you have any news?
Well, before we get to that, there's just two quick things. So for quite a while, there's been talks of a live action remake of Pinocchio, and now there's finally a director who is being tied to it, and it's
is it not
Robert
Roberto
Zemeckis.
Benigni? Who is it? Robert Zemeckis?
Yeah. And by the way, when I said a director has been tied to it, that wasn't I have no strings Pinocchio marionette reference.
Oh, but John.
But as soon as I said it, I was like, what?
You should have taken credit for it.
Yeah, well, it just kind of happened that way. It was just in the moment.
I was about to give
and
you
here we
credit for
are,
it.
and we're living in that now. So yeah,
that.
Robert Zemeckis, which.
So it's going to be like motion capture. Is it going to be like Polar Express-y, do we think? Or
I don't know.
Like just the part of Pinocchio will be, and like it'll be Tom Hanks or Tom Hanks will be Geppetto.
The thing with Robert Zemeckis is like, it's hard to say exactly what kind of Robert Zemeckis movie you're going to be getting.
Which Zemeckis is going to show up? Are we talking like, we're not talking Car Wash Zemeckis.
Well, this could be like a Welcome to Marwen Zemeckis, which is definitely very similar in the theme, having to do with toys.
Right. Yeah. He could go full Beowulf Zemeckis.
Oh, right. I forgot he did Beowulf. I saw that in the theater. Weird.
Did you?
I did.
We'll have to talk about that some other time. Wow. Okay.
And then, there's nothing to talk about. I don't know why it happened. It was
why
an
am I here?
The other thing that I wanted to mention, and this is only because this movie has come into my life recently in a very major way. But I have a toddler. She is 2.
She's adorable.
She's adorable. She enjoys the following television shows. Very much so The Wiggles. Ready, Steady, Wiggle is their show that she likes.
Fruit salad, baby.
Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. She'll do Sesame Street sometimes Mr. Rogers. But there's one movie that she likes to watch over and over and over again. Peter Rabbit. The James Corden, Domhnall Gleeson, Rose Byrne.
Was that okay?
It's like the live action CG combo that came out a few years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. It's actually really, really good.
It's really, really good. Okay.
Yeah. So it's really good. And they just released a trailer for Peter Rabbit 2. And I'm very excited that the story is continuing.
Peter Rabbiter.
Peter's Rabbit. Plural. No.
Like Peter's Friends. It's a sequel to Peter's Friends, the Kenneth Branagh ensemble dramedy.
Of course, everybody remembers that movie.
Right. Everyone remembers Peter's Friends. I didn't remember it until just a moment ago when you said Peter's Rabbit.
So anyway, moving on to Legend.
Legend, yes. So, John, I have to ask you, before we get into this, which version of Legend did you, because we both watched it this past week, did you watch the director's cut or the theatrical release?
I believe I watched the theatrical release.
Basically, how long was it?
It was like an hour and a half.
So you watched, okay, so interesting. So John watched the theatrical release. My library had the director's cut.
Oh, they did?
So we are going to be, I feel like we're going to be talking about a few things that are going to be a little surprising to both of us.
Well, hold on. Let me see. Well, you know what? Mine. Oh wait,
How much
it's an
singing
hour.
was there? How much singing
you know
was
what?
there in yours?
I don't. Oh, there was a lot of singing.
Oh, so maybe you watched the director's cut because I
Okay,
think there's...
you know what? I'm looking at it, and it's like an hour 53. Let's see. Until it gets to the credits, it's about an hour 50.
Yeah,
so maybe
I
did watch the director's. Okay.
Okay. So false alarm. We both watched the director's cut. We both watched the with the Jerry Goldsmith score, not the Tangerine Dream score.
Yeah. See, now I feel like I did it wrong. I feel like I should have watched the theatrical release.
Well,
save myself some time.
It depends on who you ask, and like I know, as I was reading through the IMDb trivia, as I always do, like Tom Cruise prefers the director's cut. Ridley Scott, the director, of course, prefers the director's cut. But apparently, like, there's a lot more depth in the director's cut, and a lot of what was cut out for the theatrical version just kind of made it a more simplistic fairy tale and less of a moral parable, which which is barely... I didn't even get that. Okay, so maybe... All right. I'm coming at this from the, English teacher perspective. So I've just finished teaching a unit on symbolism. Okay. And in the opening monologue that Tim Curry has, Tim Curry, who, by the way, was in Rocky Horror Picture Show with Susan Sarandon, who was in Lorenzo's Oil. That was mine. That was mine. I thought it might be, John, and I was like... Damn it, there's a window, there's an opening, I need to take it. I mean, that was... How could you go with anything else? Well, I mean, there's a second. Do you have a No, backup? that was my one. What else? So your backup could be that Tom Cruise appeared in both Days of Thunder and The Firm with Margot Martindale, who was in Lorenzo's Oil. That's right. So actually, I was watching Days of Thunder, and it was so funny because I was like, wait a second, what the hell? Like, that's Margot Martindale just keeping time when Tom Cruise shows up on his motorcycle and rides, test drives the car. Right. I did watch that recently, and I only stayed awake for probably that amount of time. And I was like, oh, Margot Martindale, and then immediately conked out. I hope at least you thought, oh, Margot Martindale from Lorenzo's Oil. My mind was not there. I was very tired. Oh, boy. Okay, so you're talking about the opening monologue from Tim Curry. Yeah, and he's talking about, because, I spent at least a week talking about literary symbols, and my students made these posters, and it's all like, what does darkness represent? What does light represent? What does all this represent? What does this color represent? And as he's going through the monologue about how, as long as sunlight touches the earth, darkness will have to, remain in hiding. And I was listening to that monologue, and it just all hit me. I was like, there's so many. He's talking about so much, and morals, and there's so much of the, there has to be evil because good needs evil to coexist. It's basically like in the South Park movie when Satan sings his song. Yeah. Without evil, there could be no good, so it must be good to be evil sometimes, to quote Satan in the South Park movie. Man, now I've got to decide if I'm going to use that song to end the episode or Gump by Weird Al. It is you might have to do one of those Pulp Fiction radio station switches and just go between. Oh, good call. Yeah, all right. 25th anniversary of Pulp Fiction, by the way. I don't know that, I doubt that that's one we're ever going to focus an episode on, but that's one of my favorite movies. Anyway, so back to Legend. Yeah, a whole lot of symbols in Tim Curry's opening monologue. See, I feel like this movie wanted to be all about the symbolism. It wanted to be a much heavier movie, and I'm sure that in iterations of the script, it had all of those things in a more full, complete way. Well, It's just
But
that the
but I know
tone
this.
is so
I know the script went
inconsistent.
through 1,000 rewrites, so I'm sure things just got watered down to the point where even in the director's cut, it's still a lot of missing pieces.
Well, it just feels like, I mean, because then after this, whole speech about, darkness and how there are two creatures that their horns reach to heaven, and it's basically about like these two unicorns that ensure that the sun still rises on the planet wherever they are, which I have theories, by the way. And it's basically like go out and kill the unicorns. So, and he sends like these goblins out to kill the unicorns. So, and then next thing you know, Mia Sara is prancing through the forest singing.
Right. That god-awful song.
Oh my goodness. And can we talk about how much of a bitch that character is?
Well, yeah, she's definitely entitled.
Entitled. So basically, I'm sorry, I got to set this up first, because if you're not listening to this, you're thinking like, my God, these guys are assholes. But no. So she's kind of got this thing going on with Tom Cruise, who's kind of like, he's good. I was curious to know if you felt this way or not, but as I was watching this movie, I was like, Tom Cruise is in this, and Tom Cruise is fine in this, but I am not thinking of this as a Tom Cruise movie. And I also would probably prefer someone other, like, it kind of is just a little bit distracting that it is Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's still early in his career, and this is only like one of his first bigger movies, but like he's been in, he's led major movies before this. It seems like it's a little beneath him.
It's that, well, it's not that it's been, I don't want to say it's beneath him. It's that Tom Cruise is incongruous with fantasy. Like the closest Tom Cruise should get to fantasy is the shit he pulls off in the Mission Impossible movies. Like that. I mean, what else has he done? Like a War of the Worlds, which is science fiction. Yeah. And
I guess like, I don't know, Vanilla Sky, terrible. I think is a little borderliney.
But it's it's like a psychological drama, and it's still, he works in that. But like when I think of the great Tom Cruise performances, they're either believable fictional characters like in Magnolia, Jerry Maguire, or they are real people like, playing Ron Kovic in Born on the 4th of July. When I think of, and then, or like, The Firm, the things he does, like, like that type of thing. And this is his only like true fantasy role. I'm just kind of brainstorming. I'm just trying to think if what else he would have. I mean,
Interview with the Vampire.
Interview with the Vampire, which, by the way, I did not think that was another movie where I felt he did not fit.
I mean, the last time I saw it, which was quite a while ago, I didn't mind him in it. No. Speaking of Brad Pitt, I mean, he was great in it.
Oh, Brad Pitt was excellent. Who's great in that movie is Kirsten Dunst.
She's fantastic.
Yes. But yeah, Interview with the Vampire, I always felt like Tom Cruise, it was like, you are doing your best, man. Like, and
fantasy's
I
not
know
his
why
thing.
You're there. Yeah. Fantasy's not his thing. It's incongruous. But back to the Mia Sara character, who, we buy her much more in this universe. But he brings she's this fairy princess, and she's got this thing going, like this flirty thing going on with Jack, the character played by Tom Cruise. And
I just want to quickly mention before we diverge away from Tom Cruise too much, but the character of Jack is kind of like raised in the woods. Like he kind of walks on all fours. He never is walking upright. He just wearing like tattered rags, but he's human.
He's kind
which
of
is
like
not
a Peter Pan-ish type character.
Yeah, but there's
less
nothing
mischievous.
magical about him. There's nothing magical about him.
I think
He can hold his breath for a pretty long time.
Oh,
That's impressive.
yeah. Dude can dive. Yeah, and water pressure doesn't seem to really, affect him. But hey, all for love, right? So yeah, but I felt like the thing with his character is like he is goodness. Like he was there to represent goodness. Like he's pure. He can go and watch the unicorns play. And that's the thing is like he says, he and Lily kind of meet up and he's like, oh, I want to show you something.
And she is some sort of princess.
She's a fairy princess. Yeah, I thought at some point they would introduce her father, like you would see the fairy king.
No, you only ever really see kind of her home's caretaker. Like the housekeeper, pretty much.
Yeah. I don't, but is she even the housekeeper? Or is she just like the poor lady that Lily goes to visit when Lily is like, oh, the grass is so much greener.
Yeah,
she's like, oh, it
be.
sucks being a princess. I wish I could live a humble life like you. And yeah, I didn't know what the relationship really was there.
They'd never go into that. And that was one of my problems with this is like, we don't know enough going into this.
Yeah. I mean, and it's so bizarre that it starts like in hell and you don't see Tim Curry's character yet, who by the way is Hellboy without the horns chopped off.
Essentially. So yeah, he plays the Lord of Darkness and the reveal of how he looks doesn't come until way late in the movie. And
in the director's cut.
Oh, does he show
I'm pretty sure
up
in the
earlier?
theatrical cut, yes, he shows up earlier.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, you have to say, like, it's really astonishing the way that they made him look.
Well, and the fact that he was still able to actually act with all of that on him. I mean, he's got so much prosthetic on him.
Yeah.
And Tim Curry is, I think it was voted, I forget like who voted this, but best performance in a bad movie for 1985.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm trying to remember what other bad movies there were in 85. You could probably rattle off a few.
Oh,
but
no, not 85. Sorry, best performance in a bad movie of all time by Entertainment Weekly.
Of all time. I mean, yeah, his performance is pretty astonishing. His presence is just really impressive.
Though it was, I felt like, I remember when I originally saw this, I don't remember exactly when, I think it was like I taped it off HBO type thing.
I feel like we've heard that before.
Yeah. No, it's one of those. It's, oh, that's on. I've never seen that. Oh, let's see. And I remember, I think it was so after I saw Clue for the first time, which was probably because that was a tape it off HBO movie. And I was like, man, Tim Curry is amazing. I got to see other things that he's in. And I think Legend might have been like the first one that I saw after that, because Rocky Horror Picture Show was not yet on VHS.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I think that was 91. That Rocky Horror
was
Picture
it really
Show.
That long? Huh.
So I think because I remember like I was doing theater. It was my freshman year in high school, and like of course like the theater kids got a copy of Rocky Horror Picture Show. That was the first time I saw it. It was like at a cast party for Wait Until Dark.
Makes sense.
So
there you go.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Back to Legend. Tom Cruise, Jack, he takes Princess Lily to go and watch the unicorns. And he tells her, he's like, I'm taking you here because I trust you. And he's like, here's like the one thing you can't do is like really interact with them. Like You need to give them space. So what's the one thing she goes to do? And he's like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. And she's just like, and she like, she goes out and sings to them.
She's extremely entitled, but she doesn't understand that there are consequences for breaking rules.
Yeah, she finds out soon
boy,
enough.
oh boy, does she learn her lesson. Yeah. So, and so what ends up happening is the unicorns kind of go crazy and run about. Meanwhile, one of the disciples, or a few of the disciples of the Lord of Darkness, are kind of watching, and they end up getting the unicorn with a poison blow dart. And one of their directives was to chop the horns off and bring them back. And the horns have like magical powers. So one of them gets, the main one gets, I forget what his name was, but he gets kind of like mad with power and in what he could do with the unicorn horn.
Well, and so, and by the way, so man, bad luck that the one day Jack is like, hey, I'm going to take Lily to see the unicorns, is the one day goblins are out hunting unicorns.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
And they were clearly told, get both horns.
Yeah.
They probably could have.
Yeah, I think so too. That's one of the things I was wondering.
Yeah. Like and they don't, like, it doesn't come up until they go back and Tim Curry's like, so what about the other horn? And they're like, say what?
That's exactly how it went down.
That is, say what? Yeah, exactly what happens. So John, sorry, I'm looking at my notes, and it just kind of interested me that Ridley Scott, I should double check and see, but I don't know that he did another film between Blade Runner and this movie. And
really,
I was like, what's with the unicorns? Early 80s Ridley Scott and unicorns. So you mentioned Gump earlier. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on who Gump is?
Gump, who is accompanied by, I don't remember the characters' names, but one of them is played by Billy Barty.
And he goes by Screwball in this movie, but I'm convinced he's Gwildor Sr., which is why I'm convinced that this takes place in
Endor.
Eternia. I think it's in the Masters of the universe.
I was thinking of, because Billy Barty, didn't he also do one of the, not the Star Wars movies, but wasn't he in like the Ewok show or something like that?
Are you thinking of Warwick Davis? Warwick Davis.
No. I know he was.
Oh, so Billy Barty might have been in one of the Ewok movies, like the Ewok
I think
Adventure.
so. Yeah.
But yeah, he was in Willow, but his voice in this,
it's Gwildor.
It's Gwildor. His makeup is like
the ears,
older Gwildor.
I was looking up information about the makeup artists and, designers and things like that to see if any of them had been the same people from Masters of the Universe or The Witches.
Okay,
and
I'm glad you checked.
None of which are true. What's that?
No, I'm glad you checked because I was like, The Witches.
Because these goblins look so much like The Witches.
They really do.
I couldn't find any parallels.
Had kind of a Dark Crystal vibe too, but not exactly that.
Right.
Yeah.
So Gump is this magical nymph person.
Yeah, I guess he's kind of like, is he like kind of a protector of the woods? Is that
I think so. He wields a bow and arrow, and he's kind of just
Puck.
like this.
It's like Puck from Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yeah, just this like intelligent, I don't know, little guy who's there to help.
Little guy with kind of a creepy old lady voice.
Well, he was overdubbed by the same person who was the main like goblin.
Yeah.
I
think I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, he's just there to help Jack. So, okay, we forgot to mention that the that Mia Sarah's character, what's her name?
Lily.
Lily, that's right. So Lily gets kidnapped and brought to the Lord of Darkness, and it's Jack's mission. And this all happens while he is diving for her ring, because she was like, whoever finds this ring will be the one I marry. So that's when he dives into like
she throws it off a
bottomless. Yeah, and he dives after it. It was the weirdest.
She throws
thing.
it off a cliff.
So, yes, that's when the unicorn horn gets chopped off. Most of the world gets turned to ice, and she is then captured by the disciples of the Lord of Darkness and brought back. And it's then Jack's goal to go find her, and with the help of Gump and Screwball, the other one, and Blix, I want to say.
Hans Blix? Like,
Blix is the little light nymph.
I thought that was
fairy.
Una. Isn't that Una?
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 Maybe I'm mixing them up.
Una Gata Davida? No. I think it's Una. I'm pretty sure it's Una.
Whatever. The fairy. So the fairy who is in love with Jack and like will only reveal her true self to him, and then once she is out in the open, it's like, well, here I am. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Weird.
Anyway, it's complicated. It's not
Blix,
worth going into the whole thing.
Blix is like one of the... Is
that one of the goblins?
Like the red... No, Blix is one of the... I don't know, like with Billy Barty. Billy Barty is Screwball, and then there's Brown Tom, and then Blix is the one with kind of like the red hair. I think the one who gets killed, whose like brain explodes.
Oh yeah.
This movie gets weirdly like gory.
Well, it makes sense that I was watching the director's cut, because there was one moment when they fall into the like prison cells, and like they see the one guy get carried away, and there's like the thug guy like stabbing somebody.
Yeah,
and I was like, really? This is PG?
Yeah, I know. I know the director's cut is not PG.
Well, I didn't realize I was watching the director's cut.
Yeah, no, I definitely double checked that. And then they're like, their brother, they find like their brother's already there in prison. And there's this whole backstory about the brother that they're just like, hey, whatever, it's cool. And he's like, oh, hey, sorry I was a dick like 20 years ago. Yeah. And they were like, it's cool, it's all good. And then like the big like Master Blaster from the like Mad Max movies comes and takes takes the brother and they like
Blaster.
Blaster, yes, Blaster, right.
Yeah. Master of course is
right.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, don't worry about him, he'll be fine, and like they bake him into a pie.
Right. A poorly constructed pie. It's really just like a crust on top of a person.
It is, yeah. There's no craft whatsoever put into this pie. It is, yeah. Well, I don't think because who are they making it for? Like the Lord of Darkness?
I imagine so.
Yeah, I don't think he really cares. Though he sets up a nice banquet, doesn't he?
His place is pretty dope.
When he tries to seduce and
after Lily goes goth.
Lily? Yeah, after Lily goes goth. After she embraces the darkness. Yeah. It was like a prototype for the Maleficent movies.
Pretty much. Yeah, she like there's this figure that she dances with, and then afterwards she becomes that. It was really, really trippy.
Yeah, it was really, I mean, one thing I will say for this movie is visually it is
totally
pretty incredible.
I mean, I felt like a lot of times it was a little too closed in. Like, now you can get away with a lot more digitally than you could back then, where you have to do like practical sets for so much of the stuff. But I would have liked to have seen like how vast this, Palace of Darkness is. Because it all feels like it's kind of closed in.
The Palace of Darkness, right.
I'm calling it that. I don't know if that's what it's called, but we can go ahead and just go with it. So yeah, And then basically the Lord of Darkness is going to marry Lily, and there's only a limited amount of time before Jack and his new friends can stop him, and they figure out that they're going to do this with the power of daylight. What's up?
No, I was like, this is when it becomes Big Trouble in Little China.
It's very much Big Trouble in Little China.
Though this did come out before Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, that's true. They're reflecting the sun into the palace, which is like, the fact that they could get those angles right, very quickly is pretty impressive. Because it's just like a series of shiny
like
plates.
Trash can lids, basically.
Yeah.
Or shiny plates, either or. Yeah.
So, and then that's how Jack battles the Lord of Darkness.
Yeah. So it is definitely really bizarre. And so just to kind of go back to the like Ridley Scott's director's cut, and I'm paraphrasing here from IMDb's trivia, that it apparently the director's cut dives into the impurity of humans and their sins. It says Jack was supposed to be very lustful of Lily from the start, which doesn't really come across. No. It says, but eventually begins to love her. It says the leader of that Gump is a very angry person, which
Gump comes across pretty angry.
Yeah. Lily sometimes shows greed, and then the sea hag Meg Mucklebones, who's by the way played by Robert Picardo, the cowboy from Inner Space.
Wait, what?
Robert Picardo played
I know
Meg
who you're talking about.
Mucklebones.
Crazy.
Yes, Meg Mucklebones, who is beheaded after Tom Cruise is like, oh, hey, yeah, you're pretty hot. And then she's like, oh, really? And
oh, yeah.
And yeah, it was funny. But apparently, like Ridley, like one of the things that influenced him to recut the movie was like a couple of stoners walking out of a screening. Like apparently their the commentary on it. But I'm guessing Universal had something to do with it, because also 1985, like they did like Brazil, when Terry Gilliam had to recut Brazil to kind of be a little more mainstream, though
right.
I wouldn't call the theatrical cut mainstream whatsoever.
No, not at all.
No,
I can't imagine it being even crazier.
I mean, have you ever seen the director's cut of Brazil?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
unless
dude.
I haven't, I just thought that it was.
Well, if you haven't,
maybe I've only ever seen director's cuts, and I think that I've only seen the theatrical releases. So that's interesting. I feel like some of that makes sense.
But
especially
like,
the Gump. What's up?
Oh no, but I was like, you were saying like that there's a lot of things that don't make sense, and I'm reading this, I'm like, yeah, I get that, but especially with Jack being lustful.
No, doesn't come across that way at all.
It does not come. By the way, do you know who else was up for the role of Jack?
Tell me.
So I want to say it, I have this written down somewhere, but Jim Carrey.
Really?
Jim Carrey was up for the role. I believe Robert Downey Jr.
Okay.
was up for the role.
Rodney Downey Jr. Field?
Rodney Downey Jr. Field was up for the role. And oh man, it was so funny. Sorry, I was listening. I'm going off on tangents left and right here, but I was listening to Mark Maron's interview with Woody Harrelson, and they were talking about Natural Born Killers, which and Robert Downey Jr. came up right before Rodney Dangerfield came up, and I was like, wait a second, that's another movie with Rodney Downey Jr. Field.
Well, yeah, that's right.
Excellent. But yeah, Johnny Depp.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean,
probably way more than Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I mean, like 1985 Johnny Depp, like post Nightmare on Elm Street, definitely. Yeah.
So I don't know. I just felt like there were a lot of things that were incomplete, and even though I watched the director's cut, it still felt that way. I felt like there was more to this world than we were like being shown, and there was a lot that we were probably expected to just be like, oh yeah, I'm sure that we would know that if we just existed in this world, but we don't. So that's, I think, one of my big issues with it.
I agree with you there, John. And to kind of bring back another movie that we've spoken about recently, The Princess Bride. There were times when I was watching Legend when I felt I wish that The Princess Bride had more of the visual quality of Legend.
Yeah.
But I wish that Legend had more of the storytelling quality and consistency of The Princess Bride. Not necessarily.
And imagine The Princess Bride with the score by Tangerine Dream.
Yeah, or Jerry Goldsmith. I don't know what the
Jerry
Tangerine.
Goldsmith.
That's the one
do
that
I.
we heard. Yeah.
But it's interesting that Tangerine Dream did the scores for this one and Risky Business.
Right. Not Vangelis.
Right. So I don't know. I'm just gonna launch into my.
Go for it.
So a sequel, who cares? Like it wasn't good enough to make anybody interested in seeing what happens next. Or really want to explore the world anymore, which is why I think that it does make sense to do a remake, because I feel like it's got good bones, you know? It's got a nice structure, a nice foundation. Yeah, but it just wasn't complete. There was just so much more that I wanted to see, and I feel like now, because of the way that we can build worlds like visually in ways that couldn't really be done as much then, I think that it's a good time to actually revisit something like this. And clearly they'd have to rename Gump because seat's taken.
Can't do Gump, can't do Gimp.
No, you certainly can't. Just something completely
25th
different.
anniversary of both, by the way.
No. And then as far as casting goes, like, I don't care who they put in there. Although I think for the role of, or the Jack character, I think Zendaya would be really good. I don't know if you've seen her in much, but she's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the second Spider-Man yet, but she.
Oh yeah, she's
one?
good in those.
Yeah.
The show Euphoria on HBO was like, she was fantastic in that. It's a crazy show.
Yet.
It's a really wild show. Yeah, working in a high school, I don't think that you should see that show.
Yeah, that was kind of the sense I got.
And I know that this is complete nonsense, but or a bit of a diversion from what we were just talking about. But Tim Curry as the Lord of Darkness reminds me so much of the portrayal of Satan in Tenacious D, The Pick of Destiny, played by Dave Grohl.
Oh, by Dave Grohl.
And I just want that to be in Legend. He's so good.
Yes. That's I mean, Tenacious D, Pick of Destiny, it certainly has its flaws, but that is a fun. We saw that together.
Did we really?
We saw in Philly.
Doesn't surprise me.
We did. It was when we were editing The Last Dance.
The Last Dance.
Yes.
Cool. I mean, I've seen that movie so many times. It's hard to remember the first time, but thank you for reminding me.
No, that one I remember, which is very surprising. So, that's what I was thinking along those lines. Like, I would love to find a filmmaker, and first to address casting, it doesn't matter. I think casting can be like a remake of this movie. Really does not need to adhere to much from the original, other than, like you said, the bones, because it has good. Like, the story is strong. The story is there, and I think it just kind of needs. And I mean, man, I'm a fan of Ridley Scott, but like Ridley Scott, though, like, he's made so many movies, and he's missed the mark you know, maybe not just as many times as he's hit the mark, but
Yeah.
you know, he's got a pretty balanced record, and I don't know that this one comes up as what I would consider a Ridley Scott classic.
No, but for a lot of people, it is a classic.
It's beloved.
It is a beloved movie, and that's what makes it a kind of a cult classic. Is that, you know, it's not necessarily the greatest movie ever, and it's
Right.
I mean, it was panned by critics, but you know, it has an appeal to it, and it certainly has its audience.
So my question for you is, who would you see? Because I would want to find a filmmaker. That's really, I think, the most important choice here. I think casting, you could go with unknowns, or you can go with fresh faces. You could go with Zendaya. You could do any of that, but I think the director and
Yeah, and I'd put somebody like Guillermo del Toro behind this one because, you know, his thing is creatures. I mean,
well, it practically is. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, are you going to talk about? You're just going to say Hellboy?
No, I was going to say Pan's Labyrinth. Like the dance,
Pan's
the scene
Labyrinth.
where she's dancing reminded me so much of Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah, I mean, could have been an inspiration. So, like, I don't know. I feel like somebody like Guillermo del Toro would make a lot of sense in control of this.
Yeah, I thought about that, and I was like, you know, Guillermo del Toro, Peter Jackson, and then it's kind of like, well, they've kind of done that, and I think that I would really like to see it made by someone who has a love for the original, an appreciation for the original, but also I want a filmmaker who has watched the original and said, man, I know how I could make this so much better. I want someone, and I was like, man, like Denis Villeneuve, I think if I'm pronouncing his name right.
Talking about Blade Runner.
Well, yeah, but also The Arrival, or just
Arrival.
Yeah,
Arrival's awesome.
Very like visually impressive. I was so glad I saw that on a big screen.
Yeah.
But so I think him, or even like, I don't know what Robert Rodriguez thinks of Legend, but I'd be down for a Robert Rodriguez directed Legend.
Yeah, I could see
I mean,
that.
definitely a Guillermo del Toro, but I'd be
Well, that's what I was
interested
saying. Somebody
to see-
like that.
Yeah, but I
And you
think
know what I mean when I say that.
Yes. Not
What?
Spanish.
I mean,
no.
well, also,
Mexican.
what if... Well, that's not what I...
No, I know that's not what you meant
quite
at
meant.
all. No.
Just to clarify.
Someone with
but
a very
also-
strong visual style, especially for the kind of fantastical supernatural. Yeah.
Well, also, I mean, why does it necessarily need to be live action? Maybe it could be like... And I know that Leica Studios has only done 5 films, but it's like, clearly they haven't done any remakes, but it's like, this could be a really interesting... Well, actually, you know, they've done adaptations of like folk tales. I believe that Kubo and the Two Strings kind of comes from that. But I think that would be a good opportunity to kind of build the world. And they do some really creepy stuff. Well, actually, Coraline is an adaptation from a book, so it's like there are no rules.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and I mean, Coraline
Box Trolls was an adaptation from a book.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, no, I mean, no, actually, I think that the like the visual style, the Leica Studios, style.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would really suit this well.
Yeah. Oh man, wish I would have thought about that before we started recording.
Well, it's all good, man. I mean, man,
It's all happening in real time, man.
Spontaneity is what makes this such a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hey, who's to say you can't get Tim Curry back to reprise the role?
I would love that, man. Like, Tim Curry is so good, and I think he just kind of slipped through the cracks there.
Tim Curry's really good, unless you're lost in New York, in which case, look out for that guy.
Yeah, no, you're better off with Donald Trump.
Woof. Anyway. Yikes. Did it get a little warm in here?
In that one singular circumstance. Sorry, what was that about darkness and light?
Yeah, but the light. One large cheese pizza just for me. There we go. That's the light. So anyway, that's what we got. If you have, you know what? We got another email, but I feel like this is something that we have covered through Instagram. So, my very dear friend, Louise, who is my co-host on a number of other podcasts, Louise It's a Beaver. I have a great idea, but I'll never do it, and got it. She is a very enthusiastic person and a big fan of theater. And she was so excited to alert us to the Mrs. Doubtfire musical. We did post about it on Instagram like minutes before she emailed me about this.
We posted it on Instagram several months ago because that was when they announced it for Fifth Avenue Theater.
Then you did that one and I missed it.
Oh yeah, I posted it a while ago.
And then she also sent us a link for the Back to the Future musical. So I was with her recently and she was talking about how, I know that you like to talk about adapting things for the stage when we're on this podcast. And she was saying like, she feels that it's done maybe a little too much.
Oh, so, absolutely.
So, but the thing is, it's like, who cares? It's not like this stuff is ever going to happen anyway. We're just talking out of our asses. And that's what we got
happens
going on.
Too much that we go to that, or just that it happens too much in general.
The movies being adapted into musicals just happens too much.
Well, and it's not the right ones.
Yeah, but this is kind of a good opportunity to talk about our next episode.
Yes. So
Dan.
Yes. So a movie adapted from the 1989 play by Aaron Sorkin. 1992's Rob Reiner Academy Award nominated A Few Good Men.
We're doing it.
Which, as you may know, I will have a lot to say about as I'm currently directing that play at the high school where I teach. Yes,
I feel like maybe I'm a little bit more protective of that direct information than you are. But it's a quick Google search to try to find it if you really want to.
Let's just put it this way. There's not that many high schools in the Seattle area that are producing A Few Good Men.
There you go.
So
I will let you know I've already not only put it on hold on Blu-ray at my library, but it is ready for pickup. Because I did it in anticipation of us possibly doing this.
Well, that's exciting. Wonderful.
And I maybe only saw it once on VHS, like, I don't know, a pretty damn long time ago.
We're not going to go into it because
that's next time.
We'll take a stroll down. I can take a very clear stroll down memory lane.
I'm excited. I know that the next episode is going to be very Dan heavy, and I'm ready to just go on that ride.
Well, you know what, John? I feel like because I've been so focused on not necessarily the movie, but just the story and everything. And of course, like, you do have the movie in the back of your head, mostly trying to avoid copying it. But it's I'm interested to hear your questions after watching it, because you're going to have a chance to rewatch it. I am probably not going to be rewatching it.
I wouldn't expect you to. And I got to say, I'm excited to watch something that is vastly known to be a good movie coming off of watching Legend.
Well, it's grounded in reality.
Yes.
Very much so.
Well, on that note, thank you very much, and you have a good journey.
And a good journey to you.